Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting lecture on, yes, you got it, globalization. Yeah, we're going to take a look at globalization as it pertains to international business. So make sure you get out your notes, you follow the Storm philosophy, sit back and enjoy. All right, so what are we going to look at today? Well, we are going to identify what exactly globalization is. I'm sure many of you have a pretty good idea about this. Many of you have covered this in grade 9 geography, but we're going to make sure you have a solid understanding and it's consistent across the whole class. We're going to take a look at interdependence and what that means, and we're going to take a look at globalization strategies and what companies and businesses do when they compete in a global marketplace. Well, to start things off, let's take a look at a little quote. Okay? It doesn't matter how far apart we might be geographically, economically, or culturally. We're all held tightly together as members of the human race in an all-embracing web. I think this quote sums up globalization perfectly and really gives you that idea, that picture in your mind of a web. And yes, that web is globalization. So globalization, it's very, very simple. It's the idea that internationally, businesses, processes, humans, all of these things that make up our world, and especially the business world, are all integrated. They're all interchangeable. Worldviews, products, ideas, and other aspects of culture are now so interconnected that we've all become part of one large community, and that's globalization. And so therefore globalization really has 5 major aspects to it. The idea of environmental globalization, that we now live in a society, in a world where environmentally we are so interconnected with the processes that we use to maintain our environment. Economically, that the world's markets, financial markets, are so interconnected, and we'll take a look at that down the road. Medically, right, our hospitals and our procedures that we use to treat people, again, are so interconnected. And we're seeing that more and more now with doctors who are operating in the United States, treating patients via telecommunications and robots around the world. Educationally, no longer do universities only set up shop in one country. They have a campus, maybe their home campus in their country, but they have campuses all around the world. And we're seeing that educational curriculum is also transferable and therefore used all around the world. And lastly, and maybe the largest, the biggest impact that globalization has brought is through culture. Right? Culturally, we are now so multicultural and we're so interconnected within cultures that we are seeing cultural values, cultural food, cultural clothing used all around the world. So it doesn't matter if you are in Spain or you're in Canada, you still see Spanish culture here, or Chinese culture, or Sri Lankan culture, right? And we're seeing that more and more now. So just walk into your local food market and you'll find cultural foods from all over the world. When we talk about globalization and what I just told you, we're really thinking about modern globalization. But one of the things I want to make sure you understand is that globalization has been happening for centuries. There's a long history to globalization. It really goes back to the early Silk Road or Silk Route that settlers and traders from Europe and Asia used to trade, well, silk and other goods, often spices. Right? This was our first really prime example of globalization, that markets in one area of the world impacted markets in the other area, that laborers used in one part of the world to make goods and then traded to the other parts of the world. Technology and processes also interchanged, and therefore culture as well traveled along this Silk Road. And so this early form of globalization really laid the foundation for globalization that we know of today. And therefore, because of this early foundation, we now see the results. Modern globalization, integrated sales, finance, global monetary markets, manufacturing, transportation, and communication around the world has led to huge changes to people, to procedures, to businesses, and not just in Canada, but all around the world. Canada, we would see some drastic changes, but places all around the world as well. Thousands of businesses are not just operating in national markets, they're operating around the world. One of the greatest promoters of this increased globalized environment is the United Nations. This came as a result of World War II and has really helped to establish modern global markets, right? The idea of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade morphing into what we now know as the World Trade Organization is a branch of the United Nations, and therefore modern globalization has been promoted by many international organizations, governments, companies, so on and so forth, and we have now shaped a world that we see today of a heavily globalized environment. And with modern globalization comes modern air travel, right? So all of these air flight routes, you see that on the map here. There are so many people flying daily from one corner of the globe to the other. The amount of people that are transferring from one country to another daily is so large, and with them they bring all sorts of cultural artifacts, processes, ideas, opinions, so on and so forth. And although this air travel map illustrates physical travel and physical communication, if you were to look at a map for telecommunications and internet, it would look fairly similar in terms of the amount of bytes of data that are traveling around the world daily on a per minute basis. It's just incredible how modern globalization has led to such interconnectedness. And so this interconnectedness has led to what we call interdependence. Every single country is connected in some way to another country, and these connections are what we call dependencies. We depend on other countries for various other products, processes, ideas, opinions, so on and so forth. And those relationships are all so important to our everyday living, right? If you take a look at Canada, we cannot produce every single thing in this country, so we rely on other countries to produce those things, and then we'll exchange with them to acquire those products or processes or people or whatever it may be. And so what we call is interdependence. And this globalization, this world that we live in now, has led to such great interdependence. And if you look at Canada, we have so many connections with countries around the world. We are so dependent on them, and therefore we have great interdependence. United States is probably our greatest ally, and therefore our strongest connection. We are strongest dependent. We are strongly dependent on that country. We trade with them billions upon billions of dollars every year. China, Mexico, Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, South Korea, Algeria, Italy, and France are our top 10 import destinations, and therefore you would say we have great dependence on all of these countries. But with this interdependence also comes some risks, some drawbacks. And one of the things that we saw was the Great Recession of 2008. With all the markets so interconnected, when one market crashes, such as the United States did, the rest of the markets react and respond accordingly. And so we saw our GDP drop considerably after the US's economy crashed. We were so dependent on this country, and we saw countries around the world, the same thing happen. Iceland declared bankruptcy. Ireland had a huge crash. Spain is currently and still going through the process of recovery. Same with Greece. There are many countries so negatively affected by what happened with that recession, and they're continuing to recover. So as much as each country's connections can really promote growth, they can also severely hinder their progress forward. So with modern globalization, companies have to respond with various strategies to compete in this global environment. They can choose really one of three strategies. The global strategy, which is the world is just one big market. The multi-domestic strategy, where you customize your product to local culture. Or the transnational strategy, where it's a bit of a combination of both, multi-domestic and global. Apple doesn't really change its product or its company procedures around the world. They are really the same company around the world. Multi-domestically, well, you look at McDonald's. They change their menu for various countries around the world. You can get a halal burger. You can get a lobster sandwich if you're out in eastern Canada, and even so now. But I mean, they change around the world. Whereas a global strategy, well, that's if you have a product that is just, you don't change anything about it. Coca-Cola, to a certain extent, they do change their labeling and packaging, but that's one company that doesn't change necessarily all that much. It's a brand that's recognized around the world. If you take a look at maybe a jeans company like Levi's, they wouldn't change their brand. So that would be a global strategy. So companies respond and react to globalization in various different ways, and they change their processes accordingly. So with our current global marketplace, are there issues? Absolutely. Are there positive results from globalization? Absolutely. Are there negatives? Well, there's those too. But whether there's the positives or the negatives, globalization is impacting our world at such an incredible rate, and we have to respond accordingly. We have to react, we have to gauge what's happening outside in that world, and we have to operate our business as such, as a global business. Well, that brings us to the end of our presentation. So I want you to think about this question. How has globalization changed Canada? How has it changed the world? Right? Modern globalization has such an incredible force behind it that it's changing processes and ideas daily. So how is it changing it? What examples can you look to? All right, so make sure you got your notes in order. Make sure you have your discussion questions for tomorrow. And that's it. That's all. That's everything. We'll see you tomorrow.